Haribol, namaste. Welcome. Sorry, I'm starting a few minutes late. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Sirasarupananda Paramahansa Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Sirasarupananda Paramahansa Iti Namine Namo Sirasarupananda Paramahansa Namine Gora Karuna Sarupaya Radha Krishna Pristaya Namo Sirasarupananda Paramahansa Namine Gora Karuna Sarupaya Radha Krishna Pristayate Namaste Saraswati Devo Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Askacha Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Devo Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Askacha Deshatarine Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nityananda Nityananda Gauranga Gauranga Nityananda Nityananda Gauranga Gauranga Nityananda Nityananda Gauranga Gauranga Radha Krishna Vrindavan 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 Jaya Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Guru Dev 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 Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatika Satara Sadashishiman Jagakuru Siddhasarupananda Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvatika Satara Sadashishiman His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Gauda Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Nitai Gaur's World Mission Ki Jai Navadvip Dhamma Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhani Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuradam Ki Jai Mayapodam Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Amagina Timarandasya Gana Gana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militanyena Tajmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Statpitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantekam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhi Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanan Pavenbhyo Vaishnavbhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. While speaking, first off, my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my spiritual master, Jagatguru Siddhasarupananda Srila Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada is the mercy manifestation of Lord Chaitanya, who is very dear to Radha and Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are like wish-fulfilling trees, able to fulfill all the desires of the fallen living entities, and are full of compassion upon them. Haribo, Namaste, Krishna. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and studying Srimad Bhagavad Gita with me. So we're continuing with chapter 5, which is entitled Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness. And the sequence of verses that we're studying is verses 16 to 26, which is about liberation, being fixed in the Supreme. And we're up to text 24. So in this sequence of verses, Krishna has made a number of points. That one is enlightened with knowledge, and that knowledge reveals everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. And Krishna explained, the importance of equanimity, samatvam, being equal in happiness and distress, and seeing with equal vision. So seeing everyone as spirit soul, or every living entity as spirit soul. And Krishna speaks in that verse 18, about seeing different species equally, and seeing different classes of human society differently, from a humble and learned brahmana compared with a outcast dog eater. So Krishna describes how important that is, and he describes how a person who's situated in Brahman, understanding I'm spirit soul, not this body, I'm eternal, neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant. So in text 24, Krishna is going to come back to this point, explain it a little more about about being self-intelligent, unbewildered, who isn't finding their happiness from material sense enjoyment, or exploiting the objects of the senses. So anyway, so then Krishna speaks a little bit more in text 20 about a liberated person. And then in text 22, he stops talking about someone who is liberated, or maybe liberated, but he starts referring to a Buddha, an intelligent person. So an intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses, O son of Kunti. Such pleasures have a beginning and an end, so the wise man does not delight in them. So in other words, an intelligent person, not even necessarily a liberated person, but an intelligent person, through analysis or Sankhya, understands that everything in this material world is temporary, has a beginning and an end. And that there are, Krishna describes them as sources of misery due to contact, or which are born from, like Krishna uses the word for womb, yonaha, that they're born from contact with the material senses. So it's all temporary. It's, a fading, passing show, the sense enjoyment of this material world. So a wise person can understand this. By analysis, they can understand that everything is temporary, has a beginning and an end. So even I may be, I'm enjoying something, but while I'm enjoying it, I'm in anxiety that it's going to end, and then it does end. So then I'm like, everything has a beginning and an end. Every relationship in this material world, has a beginning and an end. Every loving relationship, every relationship to husband and wife, or parents and children, children and parents, friends, they all have a beginning, and they all have an end. And so understanding this, a wise person doesn't take part in it. He's detached. This doesn't mean that we're not relating to others, or we're not being loving towards others, understanding them as spirit, soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and that we're all eternally related. So it just means we are detached, we're not attached to this person's body, because we know it's temporary. And of course, this doesn't mean that we're not concerned for their well-being, for their material well-being and their spiritual well-being, their mental happiness, and so on. Of course we are devotees concerned for others. But he understands that this is not the all in all, that this is temporary. This person I'm relating to in this particular body, and therefore I'm relating to them in a certain way based on their body, like a husband and wife relationship in between devotees. It's like, well, there's a woman and here's a man, so it's like we can't deny the reality of this material body and this material personality, this particular subtle and gross physical bodies that we have, but appreciating that they are temporary. And so the pleasures that come from such a relationship are temporary. And they're sources of misery, because at some point the relationship's going to end and it's going to be painful. It's going to be very painful, especially if one is attached, thinking that, building our foundation upon it. So like at the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mamekam Saranam Braja, so Mamekam, so me, Mam, Ekam, one-pointedly, one, Sharanam, take shelter in, refuge in. Raja, with urgency. So take shelter in Krishna. Krishna is our refuge. when Arjuna, after Krishna speaks the Chaito Shloki 10:8 to 11, Arjuna says, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma. Param Dhamma. This is the ultimate shelter, the resting place. So a devotee takes shelter in Krishna, takes refuge in Krishna. Krishna tells us, just surrender one pointedly to me. Just take shelter in me. Take refuge in me. Sharanam. And then we see every other relationship in connection with that. So, anyway, so Krishna says this is how a wise or intelligent person, a Buddha, how they look at things. They don't take part in the sources of misery. So what does this mean, they don't take part? Well, I mean, like they're still active within the world, still doing things, but it's not their all in all. It's not their life. Life is not based upon it. This is of course, the concept of Karma Yoga, which we've been talking about for months. Right? Krishna talks about Karma Yoga from the middle of chapter 2, up until now, and essentially continues it even in chapter 6 to some extent, and then and keeps coming back to it throughout the Gita. And then particularly re-summarizes it all and states it very clearly in the 18th chapter, as Krishna is concluding his conversation with Arjuna. So this Karma Yoga, it's about developing detachment. It's being detached from the fruits of the activities. So it's performing the activities, with being detached from the results, doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's what should be done. And I should perform my duty. I should perform my responsibilities. Even to the extent Krishna is saying, one who performs his duties is not subject to the karmic reaction. So if one is performing one's duties, one's dharma, one's swadharma, one's own constitutional duty, in terms of our placement within the Varnashram system. So this is, Krishna emphasizes this throughout the Gita. But one should do so in a mood of detachment. And then in chapter 18, as Krishna's concluding his teachings, he then takes it the one step further and says that we should be doing this for the pleasure of for the worship of the Supreme Lord. This is a method of worshipping the Supreme Lord. So it's not just a matter of doing the right thing or performing one's duty because it's the right thing to do, it's my swadharma, etc., etc. Krishna then links it directly with, worship of himself, worship of the Supreme Lord. So this is the ultimate Karma Yoga. So detachment. So then Krishna, in the verse we studied last week, Krishna went further and said, before giving up the present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he's a yogi and is happy in this world. So, in text 22, Krishna's talking about not taking part in the sources of misery, understanding that such pleasures have a beginning and an end. Then, in the next verse, then Krishna talks about being able to give up the urges, or to tolerate, tolerance, takshva. Being able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of kama and krodha, or desire and anger, lust and anger. He's a yogi, and he's happy in this world. I spoke at length last week about all the different times throughout Bhagavad Gita that Krishna speaks about the importance of controlling kama, lust, desire, and anger. We talked about, Krishna speaks about it in chapter 2, then he talks about it again in chapter 3, now he's talking about it in chapter 5, and he talks about it in chapter 16 at quite some length. So, how important it is to control one's desires, not to be able to tolerate them. To tolerate them. The urges, like these are urges, check the force. So actually the word was vegam, right? Check the force, desire and anger. In other words, they're overpowering. They overpower us. So, but one who can do that is a yogi. So in other words, linked up or in union with the Supreme, and is happy in this world. But so, in this next verse, text 24, Krishna says, one whose happiness is within, who is active within, who rejoices within, and is illumined within, is actually the perfect mystic, or the perfect yogi. He is liberated in the Supreme, and ultimately he attains the Supreme. So here Krishna is going further. So in text 22 he's speaking about being detached, not taking part in the sources of miseries, understanding that such pleasures have a sources of misery, the material senses, right? Due to contact with the material senses. So there's understanding, intelligence, understanding that the material sense enjoyment has a beginning and an end, and so it's temporary. So why get all wrapped up in it? And then, so further than that, not only just not taking part in that, but then being able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and being able to check the force of lust and anger. Such a person is a yogi and is happy. Right? This is how we can live happily in this world without being disturbed by the demands of the senses, being of lust and anger. These are such a disturbance in a person's life. Like the lust can essentially drive a person nuts as they try to fulfill their desires. This becomes, of course, most evident in addictions, right? People get addicted to sex, or they get addicted to drugs, they get addicted to gambling. They're so lustful, driven by desires. Of course, sexual desire becomes, if it's uncontrollable and complete addiction, it becomes very harmful. And not only is it harming the person, but it's harming the other people that a person is driven by lust, sexual lust, is trying to enjoy others, but not really seeing others as people, as spirit soul, just seeing them as essentially a hunk of meat that can get sexual enjoyment from. That leads to all kinds of, as it is even more uncontrolled, it leads to all kinds of sexual perversions. Pedophilia and so on. Of trying to enjoy others, exploiting others. Rape, so on. Right? Forcible sex with children or with others, non-consenting adults. It's so damaging. So by being able to control these urges, control this desire for sense enjoyment, and this is based on, first it becomes, as Krishna is saying in text 22, this is based upon knowledge and appreciation and understanding the nature of this material world. So this philosophy of, Lord Chaitanya's teachings, in his analysis he divided it in 3 ways. So there was gosh, I'm forgetting the first one, but anyway, the first one was, or the Sanskrit word for it anyway, relationship, sambandha, right? So there's sambandha, relationship, abhideya, the process, and prayojana, the goal of life. Anyway, so sambandha means the relationship. And so this relationship is essentially understanding who Krishna is. You know, who I am, who Krishna is, and what this material world is. And what's my relationship with Krishna? What's my relationship with this material world? And what's my relationship with others? So this is sambandha, understanding my relationship. And so, you know, of course, part and parcel in this understanding, well, I'm spirit soul, I'm jiva, jivatma. I'm jivatma under the influence of the external energy of Krishna. So I'm understanding the nature of this material world. I'm understanding that that actually I am eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. I'm the dominated part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And I'm inconceivably one yet distinct. Chincha Beta Beta Tapa, you know, Lord Chaitanya's, the essence of Lord Chaitanya's teachings that distinguishes the Gaudiya Vaishnavas from the other Vaishnava Sampradayas. You know, each Sampradaya has its like little pithy statement of its analysis of the relationship between the Supreme Lord and the Atma, the living being. So Lord Chaitanya perfectly summarized it and describes this relationship or connection as being a Chincha Beta Beta Tapa, simultaneous, inconceivably, simultaneously one yet distinct. Whereas the impersonalist is just essentially, you know, oneness, right? You know, it's all one. I forget what the Sanskrit is for it right now, but anyway, that's essentially their analysis. And then Ramanuja Acharya and Madhva Acharya and Nimbaka Acharya, you know, they developed their own little sayings, yet then Lord Chaitanya perfected it all with Achincha Beta Beta Tapa. Inconceivably, simultaneously, one yet distinct. So this is the first part of Lord Chaitanya's teachings, sambandha, understanding our relationship with God and our relationship with this material world. And so when we have that knowledge, then we're able to then understand, like, in other words, this, you know, what Krishna is talking about in text 22 and 23, this not taking part in the sources of misery, and understanding that, you know, another material sense enjoyment due to contact with this material senses, such pleasures have a beginning and an end. So this is an understanding that's rooted in Lord Chaitanya's teachings and Krishna's teachings here in Bhagavad Gita, and of course the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But anyway, so one has to, you know, we have that understanding, that knowledge, and then by having this knowledge, then we're able to be detached, not take part in these sources of misery, and then be able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger. So in that situation, then we can be happy in this world, at least happy in the sense of not being agitated and driven nuts, right, by the material senses and by anger and lust, right? So at that point, though, we're still like, it's kind of like a neutral platform. It's kind of like, okay, I'm not being negatively influenced by the material mind and senses. So I'm kind of come to a platform of equanimity that Krishna spoke of earlier. So like this, based on this knowledge or sambandha, this knowledge of my relationship of who I am, who God is, and what my relationship with God is, what this material world is, and how I'm connected to it, and how I'm connected to others, then this knowledge provides a platform on which one can be detached and therefore not subject to the material miseries. We can begin to realize, well, I'm not the body, and the miseries of the body are not actually me. I'm not actually, I'm like the silent witness seeing all these miseries, but actually it's not me. It's all just a temporary thing. This is essentially the result of Sankhya analysis. But anyway, so then that's sort of like a platform of neutrality. But then Krishna begins to describe that to go further, and one needs to have happiness within. So Krishna says, Yo anta sukha antara ramas tathanta jayoti re va yaha sa yogi brahmanovanam brahma bhutto adhigachate yo anta sukha antara ramas tatanta jayoti re va yaha sa yogi brahmanovanam brahma bhutto adhigachate. So the Sanskrit here is yaha, one who, or who, anta sukhaha. So happy from within, having happiness within. He who has happiness within, or is happy within the self. So this anta sukhaha. So actual happiness within. So this is on one level there's just like, okay, well, I'm not being subjected to the urges of lust and anger. I've got them under control. I'm not caught up in material sense enjoyment because I understand it's temporary. So this is like this is like an intellectual understanding. Very helpful. Oh, okay. All right, I get it. and there's some realization that goes with it, because we begin to understand, yes, this world is as Krishna is saying, sources of misery, dukkha, misery. It's like we begin to appreciate it, we realize it, we see it, we understand it. Like, you've only got to read a newspaper, if you read one of those anymore, or see a news story, or you don't even have to read about it, or you see it, you hear it, in a newspaper or a news source, news media, you can directly experience it yourself. The suffering that's caused by my own body and mind, and suffering that's caused by other living entities. So adibutta, that's the miseries caused by my own body and mind, which includes, the miseries of birth, diseases, old age, and death. I can just see it. It's like, well, what is my future? Death is my future. Perhaps many of you watching, if there is that many of you, it's like, well, death for you is a bit further off, right? But now I'm like 67, it becomes like, oh, heck, jeez. Death isn't actually that far off anymore. If you look at the obituaries, you see lots of people dying who are younger. It's like, oh, okay, all right, Well, like, I've been running this company in Hawaii for decades, right? Like since 1987 I first got involved, but continuously since 1990, and this is like 2024, so it's like 34 years I've been running this business, right? And it's not that big, but it's a relatively big business, medium-sized or whatever. But anyway, and it becomes like, oh, well, okay, heck, jeez. Who's going to run it when I'm gone? Right? I'm going to go at some point. We talk about, retirement, not that I want to retire, but at some point, I got to hand it over to someone else whose body is younger, who's not going to die, is likely, potentially, not going to die before I do because they're younger. Right? So it's like one has to begin making these kind of plans, planning for the future. What's the future? Well, death is the future. Oh, heck. Well, I better plan for it. Make sure someone can carry on. Okay, and then, oh, heck. Okay, well, I got, somehow or other throughout this life, I've accumulated some assets. All right, well, what's going to happen to them when I'm gone? Better have a will. All right, so there isn't mass confusion or fighting over it. So you have to prepare. Right? Preparing for death. So anyway, and disease, cancer, heart problems, right? There's old age. As you grow old, you get more of these problems. You can't. Your mind starts to weaken. You can't remember things as well as you used to. Or even people, they get dementia or they get Alzheimer's, completely lose the plot. So this is the miseries of this material world. This is the adibautika, adibhutika, miseries coming from my own body and mind. And adibautika, miseries caused by other living entities. From the mosquitoes up to the, the people who are invading your country or whatever it is, so many problems caused by other people. And then there's adidivika, problems caused by, the demigods, or problems caused by society at large, or so on, right? So there's so many material miseries. Many years ago I went to Kauai. There's just some devotees over there. Just a couple of times I went. And they were like, oh, look, don't talk about the miseries of this material world. Because people over here in Kauai, they don't like hearing that. They think everything's wonderful, right? Kauai is like this. Kauai is like the oldest Hawaiian island. And it's got the best beaches, the most golden sand. Right? Oahu's got some golden sand, but Kauai's got like lots of it. Lots of really nice beaches with golden sand, and it's a very tropical, beautiful island. And so a lot of people there, especially the kind of people who like coming to meditation programs or yoga programs, they're generally alternative type people, hippies, including hippies and so on. Anyway, they don't like hearing about how this world's a material place. Sorry, a miserable place. I don't like hearing about that. So anyway, I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, so the sort of bigger point I was making is that, so there's a certain amount of happiness, or at least non-disturbance. There's non-disturbance as a result of having intellectual understanding. But here now Krishna is talking about antasukhaha, so happiness within, so pleasure within, right? And anta aramaha, so active within, or interior delight, contentment, so interior contentment, who enjoys within the self. So this is like actual self-realization, realization of myself, the Atma, the soul. Right? So our constitutional position is Satchidananda, Satchidananga, right? So Sat, eternality, Chit, cognizance or knowledge, and then Ananda, blissfulness. Right? So this is the natural characteristic of the soul. So, Krishna is speaking about self-realization of one who's happy within, and antasukhaha, And then anta aramaha, active within, enjoying within the self. Then tata, as well as, thus in this way, or as a consequence, anta jayotihi. So aiming within, or jayotihi, is light, right? We talk about the Brahma Jyoti, the white light of Brahman, right? But it's an inner radiance, interior brightness or radiance within, illumined within, or vision is directed within. So this anta jayoti has kind of two type meanings. You know, it's like inner light or vision directed within. So this experience of happiness, sukha, and then Rama is pleasure. Right? We talk about Hari Rama. Rama refers to he's the source of all pleasure. So Rama's pleasure, so Anta Rama, so experiencing pleasure within, experiencing happiness within, light within. You know, sometimes we talk about some people are very dark. Right? You meet people who are very dark. They have a very pessimistic, dark view of the world and relationships. And so here Krishna is talking about anta jayoti, someone who's very light. You know, so this radiance, light. You know, so this, the Beatles used to sing a song, "All You Need Is Love," right? And then in the beginning of the Krishna book, because George Harrison financed the publication of the Krishna book, and it's an interesting story with that. One of his disciples, I think it's either Guru Das or Shyamasundar, one of Bhaktivedanta Swami's disciples, when Bhaktivedanta Swami told him, go and talk to George and ask him to pay for the publishing of the Krishna book. And so these disciples, I think it was either Shyamasundar Das or Guru Das, had been very cautious about not wanting to ask for stuff from George Harrison, because of course George Harrison, Beatle, multi-millionaire, right? He's like, people are always asking him for stuff. People are always wanting money, right? This is like, so it's how a person feels, right? A person who has wealth, he's always feeling people are out to get it. They want my wealth. They want something from me, right? They want to exploit me in some way. They don't really care about me. They just want my money. Right? So these two devotees had been very careful in the development of their relationship with George Harrison, and they didn't want to ask him for anything, or were hesitant to. I mean, he was offering things, but anyway, they were hesitant to ask for things from him. So anyway, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada says, no, you go and ask him. I think it was like £20,000 or something, to publish the Krishna book. And of course, Krishna book, amazing, right? Up to this point, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he's come to the West and he's brought with him the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, this is good, but it's like, it's not as good as the Bhagavad Gita. In other words, the Bhagavad Gita sort of gives more of an overview of the teachings and the philosophy, whereas in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, of course, it comes through, and in Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's purports, he's explaining it, but in the actual narration of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's, you're not getting the whole overview of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. So anyway, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada then, realizing and appreciating he needs to have Bhagavad Gita, he then writes Bhagavad Gita as it is, and he gets it published. Because initially it's first published in an abridged form, and then later on he's able to get Macmillan Publishing to publish it in its full form. Anyway, but then he publishes Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is a summary study of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he's giving his disciples, introduction to the Vedic teachings, the Gaudiya Vaishnava teachings. But then he's able to, then, of course, people want to know about Krishna. I want to know about Krishna. Tell me about Krishna. Who is Krishna? What does he do? So then he's only up to the whatever canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam he's up to, translating at that point. So then teaching Krishna is spoken about in the 10th canto. So he wants to publish that, but he does it quickly in the form of a summary study, which is Krishna book. So it's a combination translation and commentary, whereas the Srimad Bhagavatam, as he's translating it, is very scholarly. The Devanagari, the Sanskrit script, then the transliteration into English characters and letters in a very scholarly fashion, then synonyms, word for word meanings, then the translation, and then a purport. So this is very authoritative and very scholarly, and takes more time. It was going to take a long time to get to the 10th canto. In fact, it took Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada essentially 15 years from when he first started writing Srimad Bhagavatam to when he got up to the 10th canto. So anyway, I want to publish Krishna books. Anyway, I'm stringing out this story way too long. So anyway, so then he asks his disciples, go and ask George for money because he wants to publish the Krishna book. So they go and they meet with George, and his wife's there. I think it was Patty at the time. And they sort of bring it up almost awkwardly because they're kind of feeling awkward about it. Anyway, they bring it up. Prabhupada would like you to pay to finance the publication of the Krishna book. And then sort of, apparently they're describing, there's a bit of a look on George Harrison's face, like, oh no, now they want something from me. And then suddenly, there's a whole lot of lightning and a clap of thunder, and the electricity cuts out, so it goes dark. And then, for I don't know how long, not that long. But anyway, then the electricity comes back on, the lights come back on, and George says, oh, okay, he's taking this thunder and lightning and the cutting of the electricity as a sign from Krishna that, yes, I should do this. So he does it. So anyway, so then I started on this so Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada allowed him, Sriman George as he called him, to write a little introduction. And at the end of it he says, all you need is love, Krishna. Right? So anyway, so a person who's radiant within, happy within, experiencing antaramas, happiness within, pleasure within, contentment within, is very light and loving. They're exuding love for Krishna and love for everyone. Then Krishna says that such a person like this is a yogi. Sa yogi. He's a yogi. Brahma Nirvana, liberated in the Supreme. He's experiencing the Nirvana or Brahman, or liberation in Brahman. So this Nirvana, I've spoken about this before, it means to snuff out like a candle. So it's actually like a candle, snuff out a candle. So the impersonalist, of course, takes it as snuffing out our existence and merging into the Brahman. But this is not what Krishna is teaching. Krishna is teaching that one is snuffing out our material existence and entering Brahman, the Brahman existence. And Krishna is the basis of the Brahman. And we are Brahman, everything's Brahman in the sense that everything is coming from Krishna. So sometimes it's described Brahman as the spiritual substratum that's underlying all existence. Right? And then this yogi becomes Brahma Bhutaha, self-realized or absorbed in Brahman. Adhigachite, he attains. So in the next couple of verses, Krishna speaks further about Brahma Nirvana, liberation in the Supreme. So, Krishna, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much. If nobody listened, I wouldn't have the opportunity to speak, and then I wouldn't have the opportunity to prepare for these classes and study Bhagavad Gita and so on. So thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you find it helpful. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribol, Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Thank you so much.